Bro, let's I actually want to start this off in a non-real estate direction. I want to start talking about your car.
Okay.
Because you've recently bought, is it a brand new?
Nah, the F8. It was 12 months old.
12 months old.
Yeah.
So 12-month-old Ferrari.
Yeah.
You've got number plate scouting.
Yes.
Love it.
Thank you, mate.
Now, did you come from money?
No.
Okay. So this is self-made.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. How old are you?
34.
34, 12-month-old Ferrari, got a Defender downstairs as well, living the life, writing big numbers as a buyer's
Jacked as
agent.
fuck.
Jacked as fuck.
Come off a month's snowboarding trip.
His arms are the size of my body. It's absolutely mental. So you've come from nothing to this,
Yeah.
right? To
Yeah.
a Ferrari level.
Yeah.
How?
Persistence, man. Like just kept going, and I think I was blessed in a way of I didn't go down the avenue of university. So my family tried to push like all of us towards uni. I was very blessed. I think I didn't go down that way because I'm not a book smart. So I'm smart enough, you know what I mean, to do what I do. But I'm not like, I can't study. I couldn't keep the attention for it. I was okay at school, but not great. But I always worked my ass off. And I was quite a good soccer player when I was younger, but I was not your typical soccer player. I was more of an aggressive box to box, Roy Keane, Steven Gerrard sort of style player. And I think that just really carried through to business and through to property and just wanting to create results, not just buy and hope and all the rest of it. So I think that was the real change that has kind of propelled me to here. So it's been a long journey, man. To be completely honest, I ate shit for a lot of years. A very, very low income earner actually until I started doing well as a buyer's agent.
And how long ago was that? When did that shift happen? And why did that shift happen?
With business or with real estate?
With real estate.
With real estate. So
and business, I guess, same thing.
Yeah, man. The change came first and foremost with property, right? So real estate. So I'm an investor first and foremost. Absolutely live, eat, and breathe it every single day. Love
so you
it.
did that
Mate,
before
this guy's
buyer's
a machine.
agent.
He's got like 100 properties by the fucking 20 years old.
So you started off investing before you became a buyer's agent.
Yeah, I'm the anomaly in that space of all the BAs coming in and making money out of a business and then building a 100 property portfolio and then claiming they kind of did it before sort of thing. There's nothing wrong with, like, obviously it's great even if they're out there actively investing after the fact. But I wasn't like a business minded person. I was an investor first and foremost. I bought my first property at 19. Second one was a development at 22. Wow. And then started buying 2 a year from 24, 25, 3 a year, then 4 a year, and then it just exploded when I really learned how to do all the different things. So 100% investor first and foremost. I think I was at 20 something properties before I even started the buyer's agency, like 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago.
Insane, eh?
Yeah.
How many would you have today, if you don't mind sharing?
I have 67 properties, and then I have another 14 rentals on top of that. So I've got over 80 rentals at the moment.
Fuck.
Yeah. It's been a journey, man.
It is, bro.
Why did that happen? Like, what pushed you down that
What
real estate
trauma?
path?
There's got to be a trauma.
There has to be something deep down that's triggered you that goes, fuck, I need to get out of this.
So, man, I was, like I said, I was a decent soccer player when I was younger. When I was in my teens, man, I was very good in Australia, right? And I didn't make it. I didn't get there. You kind of missed the point of going proper first grade in terms of first grade at a really high level. And, man, I just realized that it wasn't going to be my kind of avenue, right? I had hip surgery at 19. I just never really came back the same. Yeah. And at 19 at the same time, I was like, no, fuck it. I got the money. I'll buy my own property. So I bought the first property, and then you kind of get bitten by the bug, right? You buy your first deal. You realize you can renovate it. You feel like a legend because you got a property. Like, it's true, right? When you're
at 19 with a house, like, come on.
I bought a property at 19. You think your shit don't see?
Man, it was mad, you know. So, and I kind of just got bitten by the bug a little bit, you know. Yeah. And then it's actually a funny story. I was at a dentist, never early. I was early today, never early, right? That's so fucking rare. It shows how excited I was when seeing I pumped, right? And I was 10 minutes early to the dentist. He was running 10 minutes late, and there was a property mag sitting on the table. I was literally 19. I just bought my unit, and I picked this thing up and I started flicking through and started reading it. And then I was like, fuck, you can do this, all this sort of stuff. And then the dentist comes out. I didn't want to go in because I wanted to finish reading this magazine. So I asked him if I could take it. He's like, yeah, whatever. It was like 2 years old. I was like, man, and he's like, yeah, whatever, just take it. And then I went home, read the thing back to front that whole night. And then the next day went into the newsagent, bought the three mags out at the time, the podcast of the new magazines, right? But yeah, man, went and then read those back to front, subscribed to them, and just absolutely consumed it. So it kind of just like, I don't know, bred into me. I've always wanted to be very successful. I've always been happy to work hard. I grew up on a very small farm, and my parents actually worked like 7 days a week their whole life. They almost still do, you know. They've only just recently sort of gotten rid of it, and they're 70, right?
So you've seen that work ethic.
Yeah, man, and I've seen the pain of not getting yourself out of it before you get there. So I think, man, I've just always wanted it. I've always, since I was like 5, I wanted a Ferrari. You know what I mean? Like, and I've always wanted the yachts and the mansion. It's not from a vain perspective. I just love that shit. You know, I literally love that stuff.
100%.
You know, and
it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, man. So, man, that's pretty much it. I just really fucking wanted it. Just kept going hard after it, and then.
So were you working while you were investing?
Yeah.
What were you doing?
So I was working on the farm.
Working on the farm. Wow.
So I left school at 16. So high school dropout. Started year 11. Fucking couldn't do it. The travel. I was living in like at the edge of the Southern Highlands. It was a 2-hour train ride and a bus every day to school. I was going to Westfield Sports in Fairfield. 2.5 hours each way every day. And it was just too much, right? So I dropped out for that. And then, I started literally working on the farm the next day. But it took me 3 years to save my first deposit. And I remember when I bought my first one, because I remember this so clearly. I was making $750 a week, clearing $584. And that's how much it took me 3 years to save that first deposit to buy the first place.
That's proper discipline. Why do you think people can't discipline themselves with money habits?
Because they want everything they see on Instagram now. You know what I mean? Like everyone sees they see the Ferrari or they see the G63 or something. So everyone takes on that stupid debt, the dumb money, right? I call it dumb money when they take on stuff like that, because it is. It's not going to help you get towards it. I don't say this in any way sort of a vain way, and a lot of people don't actually agree with this, but like I buy my cars in cash. I've made the money. I don't take on the debt. I take on debt for property, and that's it. All the other stuff, I have to actually earn it to be able to buy it. If that makes sense. Some people disagree with that. They say you should leverage that stuff or lease it or fucking whatever. I don't agree with it. I only buy it once I've earned it, because I don't want to take that bad debt on. Never had a credit card. I'm 34. You know, like fucking don't have credit cards. Don't get personal loans. Don't get a car loan. Buy it when you've earned it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, man. That's where I come from.
Man, he doesn't need Amex points now. He just those business guys.
Like, what's that? What's that Amex points?
You know what's funny about, right? I've got an Amex. I preload the fucker, so I don't even take it on. You preload it and then you buy it. So you still get the points, but you don't have to take on the. I don't know, man. That's just the way I can't take on that debt. It's weird. It's like I got that bred into me very young from my family to not take on that bad debt. So yeah, man, never done it.
Mate, it's really inspiring to see. And you know what the inspiring thing in my eyes, what you've been able to achieve and crack, is to be able to build such a large volume portfolio and not be I'm sure you were roadblocked, but you cracked out a way to continue buying and building. Can you touch on that process of building out a portfolio, what that looks like, and what lessons have you learned through that process?
Yeah. I mean, everyone has a serviceability cap, right? Like you'll get capped at any point with borrowing. Doesn't matter how much you make. There's always a cap, right? It's figuring out how to work past those caps and being smart about it. So I ran into a lot of ceilings on the way through. You can imagine being a low income earner, you hit them more frequently and faster than a lot of people would. My first big one was in 2017. It was very fortunate timing, because the first unit that I'd ever bought, it had grown really well, but the yield was terrible and it had strata and all the rest of it. It just killed me from a cash flow perspective. And I'd been building my portfolio quite well to that point. I'd kind of changed tack after 3 deals, and I was going into more lower end properties with better cash flows, forced value through renos. So I was stripping equity out of them. Like I'd buy the property cheap, I'd buy it below market value.
Give me an example.
Man, very first deal. These numbers sound crazy, right? But remember, we're rewinding nearly 10 years now.
Yeah.
I bought in Adelaide, a couple of deals. First deal, 155 grand, right? It was a house, 20 Ks from the CBD. 155 grand, market value was probably 180. So I bought, it was like a little over 10%, about 12, 13%, whatever, below market value. I went down there myself because I was a low incomer. So it made sense for me at that time, making nothing, to go spend 2 weeks living in a tent out the back, renovating this thing, and then it revals it was like, I don't know, 230 or something like that, right?
Wow.
And then stripping the equity back out, so I could pull the equity back out of it in terms of a refinance, go into the next deal, which was in the next suburb, and then fucking rinse and repeat and do it again. And because the yield was so strong on those deals, it was enough to keep servicing. So I could I just kept rinsing, repeating that strategy. And that's how I built that real base out.
Have you sold any properties or have you held everything?
I've sold 2.
And why did you sell them?
So the first one, that's where I was kind of going, was I hit that serviceability cap. That was when I was 27 or 26, 27, I think I was. And the timing of when I had to sell that thing made a lot of sense to keep moving forward. But the really cool thing was it was also the peak of Sydney. I didn't know it at the time. I kind of fluked the peak of Sydney when I exited. It was 2017 actually.
Oh, no way. Right before a crash.
Yeah, man. So like when I sold it for 525, I bought it for 275, sold it for 525.
Wow.
And then within 6 months it was worth like high 4s. So like I got real lucky on that one. So
Jeez.
but it's all part of it, man. And this is the biggest thing I found was you got to find the strategy that works for you, that allows you to keep moving forward. Everyone's different. And man, you got to treat your portfolio like a business. So if things have done exceptionally well, but then it holds you back, fucking clip it, get the debt back, get the cash back, and move forward. And then I jumped from pretty much within 2 years. I jumped from 7, I went back to 6, and then within 2 years I was over 20 properties.
Wow.
Something that I really appreciate being a business owner or being a commercial agent, someone where you don't have a consistent paycheck, is that you value having cash flowing assets. And the whole concept of negative gearing is good in theory, but the reality of that, I think when you are in a situation like ourselves, can be a bit different to a PAYG high income earner.
Definitely.
What's your take on buying cash flow, growth, negative gearing?
I think even like touching back for a sec, even on Kev's question there, because we'll feed into this one, the idea of buying forever and never selling, it doesn't make sense. Because if you buy something, let's say you buy something that's really strong growth property, and it's in the portfolio to grow really strongly, and then it grows really strongly, but it's yield shit. What are you holding onto it for? You know what I mean? Like, what's the actual purpose of holding onto it? So with the properties I have in my portfolio, I've sold 2, but the reason I haven't sold more is because others I believe are still peaking out and still going through their cycles. So it's one of these things, man, that when it comes time to sell those growth properties, I'll sell them because like a lot of people talk about like Sydney is king, or they look at these areas that have had really long extended growth cycles beyond when they should, but they forget between 2003 to 2013, Sydney did nothing. There was 5 other capital cities that doubled in that time frame. So you could have pulled your money out, doubled it there, got back into Sydney in 2012, and then gone on the crazy run we've been on now. So it's one of these things, man. Like I believe you should sell when it makes sense to sell. But then going back to your question, Dan, around the like negative gearing and positive cash flow and all the rest of the sort of stuff. Portfolios need to be made up with multiple property types. You can't just build cash flow and you can't just build growth because you get stuck. You need to have a balance of the two to be able to keep building the portfolio. So they're both really important. I know you boys do your renovations and your developments and things like that. There's always a place for them if you've got the capacity in the portfolio as well, because getting those big chunks of equity and actually making it yourself is really important. So especially kind of in the markets that you guys are operating in, which might stagnate a little bit. So if you can generate it, manufacture it yourself, it's really important. But I think it really comes down to the individual investor. And it comes down to what you're trying to achieve as well. So it's always different, man.
Is there a reason why you don't flip? Time, energy, or?
Yeah, these days I'm definitely too busy for it. Back in the day, I preferred to force value on it and then hold it through a growth cycle. So flipping makes sense. You've got to remember I was buying a very different purchase price to what you boys are probably doing it at. So your figures, if you're making the same margin, we're talking hundreds of thousands, right?
Yeah.
For me, on the margins I was working on as a lower income earner and lower price properties was maybe 50 grand. And if let's say I'd done 2 in a year, maybe I'd more than double my income and it could have been worthwhile. But if they were at the bottom of their cycles and it was positive cash flow and those deals weren't holding me back, that made sense to keep acquiring them and actually just hold them in the portfolio. And now instead of making 50, I've probably made 300-400 grand off each one in the last, like, say, 7 or 8 years. So it makes a lot more sense if they're at the right point in their cycle.
Where are most of your properties?
Man, I've got a massive spread between Queensland and WA, so between Brisbane and Perth, actually, to be
Perth,
specific.
you'd be laughing right now.
Man, Perth, we got in Perth like hard in 2020, 2021. Fucking crazy,
Mate, that's a big dick move because Perth has, and still when you look at the growth rates, historically has been very, very poor. So it was a big
Stagnated 10
speculative.
years.
It's funny you say that, man. I always put my money where my mouth is. Always put my balls on the line first, out of any clients. And so people were saying that to us, and I was like, I'd already bought a couple. I was like, oh, fuck yeah, I literally bought about 10, or I don't know the exact number, say 10 plus properties in about 6 months. I just went absolutely ham at the start of 21. I was like, no, this makes sense. Like the writing's on the wall here for this to take off. Like everyone was saying that, man, it hasn't grown in 14, 15 years. Had the mining boom. This thing's like, it's don't touch it, right? They looked at it as like this regional town. It's fucking over 2 million people live there. And the writing was on the wall. Highest income in the country outside of the ACT is Perth and is WA, and yet the lowest house prices in mainland Australia. And some of these areas where you could buy, and the money you could buy these properties for, proximity to beach, proximity to capital cities, 4-bed, 2-bar houses, all buying them for sub 300 grand. It was fucking wild. So it just made complete sense. But when people were like a bit distrusting, I was like, all right, no worries. So money where the mouth is, roll it out, picked up heaps, and then clients obviously took a lot of trust out of that as well, and then started buying heavily as well. And then obviously the portfolio has done really well out of it too. But they're probably the biggest exposures in my portfolio would be between Brizzy and Perth. There's probably 40 plus between the two of those. And then I got a big bunch in Adelaide as well. Went pretty hard down there in the late teens, and then I still hold a bit in Sydney too.
If you were doing so well, obviously prior to opening or becoming a buyer's agent, why did you open?
The biggest thing was I actually did hit like a proper cap, so that like it came to a point where like I'd even exhausted all my other lending tiers and everything I'd learned how to do. I pretty much had gotten to this point, but I also had replaced. So I was making about 90. It was like low 90s, 90 something grand a year, still on the farm, but absolutely working.
You bring out,
yeah, killing myself, right? And I was kind of at that cap that I'd replaced 70,000 in. It was like 68,000 or something in passive income. So I'm like, I'm only like 25 grand off it. If I can just do a couple of deals, I was just like, if I can just do a deal a month, I'm sourcing deals, like I'm sourcing properties, which I love the deals. And then, maybe make myself an extra 100 grand a year or something, doing something that I love and just start investing full time. And so that was the whole premise why I started. Like it was literally, that was the reason why I started, because I love doing deals.
Yeah.
And then it just evolved from there, I just went to a different level from there. So.
Crazy. And I guess the good news is now that you are a business owner and your income potential's greater and
Yes.
access to capital, you can continue to build. When you talk about marketplaces like Perth or different purchase prices, what are you seeing in the marketplace now that is working well? And what purchase prices are you working in for clients?
Yeah. Man, I think gone are the days of like the sub kind of 300,000 purchases. They are there very occasionally, but that sort of bracket is almost completely gone. We're kind of almost working into a new world order in terms of property pricing in Australia. I believe within the next, probably by the start of next year, you won't be able to buy in a capital city sub 500 grand anymore for a house. And that's not a bad thing, because it means a lot of people have made wealth out of it as well, which realistically, a lot of investors, that's what we're in the game for, right? Man, what's working really well is still targeting, in my opinion, more of your blue collar areas that have a lot of value still left in them. Good, strong income to house price ratios, haven't seen a ridiculous amount of growth over the last few years. So there's still growth in the tank, and buying below market value in those sort of locations, right? So you're making a discount on the way in, and then you're in the sort of area that's going to grow really well for you as well. You got good yields because of the price point. And so that allows you to kind of keep investing, keep borrowing, keep getting the money as well. So you're able to build a bit more of a base and being creative with your lending as well. Like that's a really important thing to be able to keep building and moving forward. Man, so kind of what we're looking at is kind of between $300,000 to $700,000, depending on the capital city, depending on the location. That's where we're seeing a lot of value. And then I'm seeing some guys make some other investors that I know, and I know you boys with what you're doing as well, making good money, developing or forcing value in that kind of. It's funny, you almost call it like a mortgage bill to Sydney, right? These days, like 1 to 2 mil. But there's good money if you can find things in that sort of bracket as well. So I'm seeing people make good money in that stuff. I think you've got to be careful in the markets that you're in, that you're not going into somewhere that's a bit exposed, because it's just one of those things you've got to be a bit careful where you're investing these days. It's not a blanket rule of throw the dart, hit the board, and you're going to win. But yeah, man, if you're calculated with that stuff, make sure you're not paying above market. That's the biggest thing I'm seeing people make the mistakes of. They're paying over market. They're just buying stuff because they get access to something or whatever, and they don't understand market value, and they're paying overs. Yeah, man.
How do you determine market value?
So. For one, internally these days we have an internal valuer, over 20 years experience. Thank you, bro. He's changed my life because now I don't have to value deals 40 hours a week on top of everything else I do. So he's been a game changer for us. But we go through a 3-step valuation process. And first part is the buyer's agent individually who sources a deal. They go through a val process, and everyone that we have in the business becomes market experts. So we buy Australia wide. It doesn't mean that someone buys in Perth, Brisbane, Adelaide, Melbourne, whatever, all at once. They might buy in 2 councils right next to each other, and that's it. And that's their patch. So they learn that intimately, become area experts, the same way you boys are in yours, especially in the sales agent, right? Someone calls you with a certain property, you just know what it is because you work a patch, right? And owner-occ BA sort of stuff is the same. But when it comes to investment, because investment can be so widespread, the biggest issue we see so many people make is they're scattergun. They've got 10 locations and there's 1 or 2 BAs. You can't be an expert in that many locations. So that's the first point, the first focal point, and then it comes through to the valuer, and then it comes through to me for the final sign off and check and spot val as well. So it's it's kind of, that's how we make sure we get everything right from that side. And I'm very vocal about not paying overs and not even paying market value, and I call people out on doing it. So we need to make sure that's right, and that's why we have that 3-part process, so we don't get it wrong. So then the investors are winning.
For advice for there are a lot of everyday Australians that listen to this podcast now, mums and dads that are looking to invest.
Yeah, for sure.
What would be your advice to them if they don't want to go down the buyer's agent space, but they want to try find something under market value? How are you pinpointing that stuff?
I think the market these days, Dan and I were having a laugh about this just before we sort of came in. The market has almost changed these days because of the amount of buyers agents that are now out there in the space. I think the biggest issue with the mum and dad investors having a crack out there right now is stock is literally so tight that buyers agents who have no idea really what they're doing are spamming all the real estate agents, just getting access to stock and then just selling it to their clients, not understanding what that value is. They don't even understand how to really assess market value as well. Looking at comparables, literally like for like comparables, to understand completely what market value is. I think the biggest issue with that is creating this imbalance of so many properties just getting flogged, either off market or going on market, and then people not understanding, just paying, right? Which ultimately does create market value at that point, but was it market value when they could have bought it as well? So I think the biggest thing for us is getting access off market. So like if someone was out there trying to do it, it would be trying to establish themselves in a market, really learn market value, try and build a couple of connections, see what you can get from that side off market, and then understand how to vet and value a deal, because that's really the only way you can do it. The biggest issue is when something hits the market these days, it just gets smashed.
Getting pumped.
Yeah. Like we in the last we ran the numbers on this in a session with the team a couple of weeks ago, and since the start of last year we've had 1 month, and it was in February this year, because I don't know if you guys would remember that it was the highest listing month. There's a huge surge of listings because December and January was so tight, and then was it Feb or March got smashed with listings, right?
Yeah, Feb.
Yeah,
Feb got
it was Feb,
smashed.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? Yeah, it got pumped. Yeah.
It's the only month since January last year, we're in May. It's the only month that we have done less than 90% off markets in the team. So we did 88%. Every other month, we sit between about 91 and 96% every month off markets.
Holy hell.
Because everything going on market gets smashed.
We only one on market purchase was in February. Everything else has been off market.
There you go. Yeah. Man, it's case in point, right? Because you can't get a great deal. You can't negotiate. You just, to win, you've got to buy against the masses. Yeah. And that little percentage might be something that's crashed or fallen over. You've got an agent relationship and they get fucked over on a couple of deals or whatever. And then there's like, they need this gone. And that's where the occasional one comes through.
100%.
Everything else is off. But
so, ladies, gentlemen, whoever's actually listening to this, that is a mum and dad investor that is not using a buyer's agent to buy property. I'll say this right now. I'm in real estate, right? I'm a selling agent myself. Yep. I know real estate inside and out. I know RP data. I've got access to everything. I still won't buy myself. Oh, he's Dan.
Yeah.
And the reason is he gets me the access to the off-market properties that no one else can.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, to anyone that's actually looking to buy property, I actually think it's a really bad idea not to use a buyer's agent. Even if you're a selling agent, I think it's bad because the property that we're buying is so ridiculously under market. And plus at the same time, the second deal we're looking at too as well to go buy now, there's loopholes in the council where you can split blocks that no one else knows about. All these little bits and pieces can mean the difference of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So to anyone listening to this that is thinking of buying a property or is in the process of looking to buy a property, my suggestion is get a buyer's agent, 100%.
Mate, it's a great call, and I think even like elaborating on that a little bit further, because people have asked me, oh, but you never used one when you started out, and kind of were going, and the difficulty is it's a different time. You know what I mean? Like 5 years ago, pre-COVID, stock was all right. You could do it. You could have a crack and do it yourself and probably do okay. But the issue now, man, is there's no stock. You know what I mean? And when there's no stock, and also in the last 5-6 years, like how many buyers agents, uneducated buyers agents have flooded in, getting access to the off market and then paying overs for it off as well. So it's like it sounds rough, right? That people can't do it themselves now. But realistically, I look at it and I don't understand how someone could go out there and try and do it themselves now by themselves.
Yeah.
You're just never going to get access to the same sort of stuff. Even the nufty BAs are going to get compared to the experienced ones that have built the relationships and everything as well. So
100%.
it's tough, man. Like I feel for them, but at the same time, you got to play the hand you're dealt, and you got to play in the market you're in. And ultimately, it is what it is.
If you had $500,000, where would you buy right now?
$500,000. There's still pockets of Adelaide that'll probably be worth having a look at with $500,000. Perth, if you're using a good BA, you might just be able to slip into Perth. And there's a fair few decent regional locations across Australia right now that you can definitely still buy for under $500,000.
Yep. What about Newcastle?
Man, I'm not a fan of. I won't just say Newey. I'm not really a fan of Sydney and surround. So I'm a Wollongong boy and a Southern Islands boy. So I'm from sort of the other end of it. But where I see the market at a peak, right? And it may have even come off a little from the peak or whatever. I don't know the market intimately enough to know well enough. They're the sort of markets I was talking about where if you want to make money in those markets, I feel like you're making the money from forcing the value. So you're buying at a discount and then you're forcing the value. And then if you're playing in the $1-2 million brackets, it's a big chunk. You make 20% on $2 million, you make $400,000. Right. You know what I mean?
Okay.
We can't sort of do that on a decent level. You know what I mean? Like so like for us to find those opportunities and try and do that, it doesn't really make sense for us. It also doesn't fit so much into what we do because I target so much in terms of growth locations.
It's a different model.
Yeah, and so
different model.
I prefer, like, man, you'll make 20% on the 20% of what you make on a deal you make on the way. You know, people always say, "Oh, you make when you're buying a restaurant." You do to an extent. If you want to grow aggressively, you definitely do, because if you want to pull that equity back out and go again, you definitely do. But a strong growth location will do 80% of the hard work of a good portfolio and a good property.
How are you picking the strong growth locations when you're speculating that performance where there's no historical data?
Man, it's a great point. So you know what I was talking about when I was talking about Perth before as well?
Yeah.
So assessing everything, man. So I get excited when the historical data looks shit. Man, I get amped. You know what I mean?
Yeah, see, I'm like, I run away from that. I'm like, this place is fucked.
But that's why it's like, man, this is where it's different, right? It's different, and it's different. People invest in different ways. But I get excited by it because I know that if we buy at the right time, we buy at the right price, and the market performs the way that all the other data and everything, the way that it's trending and all the other stuff in the background stacks up for, we might do 120% growth in 5 years on purchase price, not on capital. So capital might be like 500-600x return, ROI on that stuff. So, man, I think you got to really understand if a market is going to run. It also doesn't mean that just because it hasn't had it, from, if people hear in my perspective, oh, well, I'll just go find someone that's had no growth. It might not have had growth for a specific reason.
Yeah.
So it's got to have the correct reasons that are now turning it into a growth market. So you might have, big projects coming into an area, or infrastructure from an infrastructure perspective, right?
Yeah.
You might have strong incomes in an area, just hasn't gone through its cycle, but something is changing it. That's turning. You look at a lot of the lifestyle locations that went through a lot of growth during COVID. They probably never should have grown. There's no real drivers there, but COVID happens and they do 100% growth in 2 years because people want to move there and live there. So, and that's a hard thing to predict something like that. It's not a hard thing, it's fucking impossible to know.
No one has a crystal ball, bro.
Yeah,
Otherwise we'd all be billionaires.
But that's a COVID perspective. But from a growth perspective, you're typically looking at a lot of those changing things. And sometimes it can be flow on. A capital city might grow, and then you might look at, say Sydney has this boom, and if you look at Sydney. Do you want me to stop for a sec?
No.
So if you look at Sydney, the way Sydney boomed, and then Wollongong, the Highlands, Newey, it all started 12 months after, So if you saw Sydney start growing in 2013 and then realise that trend, and at the end of 2013 went fucking ham into Newey or Wollongong or whatever, I don't know about you, man, but the stuff, actually you're a little bit younger than me. So like the stuff that I own down the Highlands in Wollongong, man, it all doubled in like 3 years, you know? So, and that was geographic luck realistically for me with where I was doing that stuff initially in the portfolio. But man, like it's all part of you. And it made me realize and kind of learn those different little things to look for.
Well, from my perspective, I would see a minimum spend for an investor now to do well in the areas I buy in. 500,000, you probably need 550 to get in what I consider more your bread and butter blue chip areas, rather than your unperformed areas. What would you say for you is the minimum purchase price you'd recommend people come with?
Okay, so your minimum like that's for like a unit in say new.
Yeah, like I personally wouldn't buy a sub 500.
Okay. Yeah.
Probably 600 now realistically is what I would recommend. But if you got between 500 and 600, we can service it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, minimum for us, we're being very aware of taking anyone on sub 350. We're just telling everyone like it's a piece of string in terms of how long it's going to take to source. There's very limited locations and very limited properties at that sort of money that we can actually source for you. Man, we're not that dissimilar. There's not that many places that are still worth buying in, probably sub 450. Sub 450 is a decent wait time with us at the moment. 450 plus, like we can turn something around, like a decent deal in a decent time frame.
Yeah.
When you go below that, it's just you've just eliminated like 99% of the country now, you know. So it's just like there's only so much stock. It's still possible, and if you have that, it's like don't not invest because you can't get to that point. There's still opportunity there, but yeah, man, it's just like it's a lot harder and takes longer these days. So
if you had the same borrowing capacity you do now versus when you started, where would you be starting your portfolio
right now?
Yeah, if you could borrow $3-4 million today, how would you build a portfolio?
I probably would. I wouldn't really change what I do because what I do works. Like it's worked for me.
Pudding, right?
So it's buy, do a reno, add value, pull that out, buy an next deal, but still buy in areas where you got the yield.
Yeah, because the yield retains the borrowing, and I think that's the biggest thing. But yeah, man, it's worked for me, you know, for all these years, and I've just refined it and gotten better and better with it as well. It doesn't have to have a reno potential. Reno potential is obviously nice, but sometimes you'll just get something at a great discount. So you might get an out of area agent, or you might get a distressed seller, or you might get something that's just like you get the combo, and then they just don't understand what market value is, even from the sales side, which actually happens
all the time.
Yeah, it happens so much more than people realize. And then the opportunity's there, and then sometimes if you can negotiate, you know, well off it as well, you can grab a great deal. So you don't always have to do the reno, but sometimes like you also, it's not like it happens all the time. It's not like there's heaps of them at the same time. So it's then finding that balance. And then sometimes you might find something that's 10 grand below, but it's a bit shitty. And if we put 15, 20 into it, we could turn it into a 30, 40 grand equity gain, you know, from that deal as well. So it's just understanding what's there, but I wouldn't change, dude. I literally still buy that shit. Yeah. If anything, I buy worse.
So you buy the deal, not necessarily the location or the purchase price? Or maybe a deal in the right location.
It's always still in the right location. Yeah. So the difference with me now, I don't actively go and try and buy. I've always got pre-approval sitting there, and I've always got cash sitting there in case something pops up. But what will happen is this happens at least once a month. A deal will crash, or a deal will almost be together, or whatever, and it's just like it's too hairy for a client. You know what I mean? Like the 50 grand reno turn into 100, or the $0 reno turn into 50, and it's just like it's too hectic. And then all of a sudden we get to a crash point in the contract, and we explain to the client, and even if you can get that amount off, they may not be able to. It might come off the loan rather than actually as a cash settlement or anything.
Yeah.
So like these opportunities pop up where it's just like I might just say to the BA, look, I'll settle it in 7 days cash if they take 50, 100 grand less. And 9 out of 10 times they say no, but then you only need 1 out of 10 to make that sort of amount. So that's the way I play it. So I don't buy the nice stuff. Like I buy the shit.
You still buy the shit in the low affluent
100%, bro. I don't give a fuck. Like
as long as it's making money, it's making sense, baby.
100%. And we've got internal project managers, right? So like we've got a reasonably big team, but we've got building managers, we've got construction, we've got renovation managers, we've got a full department that manages, because that's like so much.
How big's your team?
We've just clicked over 30 staff. Yeah, but the funny thing is we're 7 full-time BAs, but then but all the rest of it is support to make sure that everything turns over and works properly, you know. And yeah, man, so it's literally, it wouldn't change because I know that I can make, let's say I make 100 grand on a deal after I do the reno. But then if that market goes up 300 grand in the next 3-4 years, it's like, and then you do 10 of them in a year.
Keep holding,
Yeah.
So, question: you've got the cars, you've got the houses, you got the business success, you got obviously the money's coming through. What's your why now? What's the driver? Because there's got to be something that's still driving you. Otherwise, you would have just retired by now.
I was listening to Emil's interview, right? On the way up here, I was telling Dan, this is the second time I listened to it. I fucking love that guy because of his passion.
He's so passionate.
He's a beast, bro.
I fucking love this shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't still be buying deals that are a bit of a headache to do this and that and everything if I didn't still love it. I still love the deal. I still love the chase. I love helping people as well.
Yeah.
So I got burnt by a BA back when I was at that stuck point, right? Because I went and saw a BA when I was stuck, and my borrowing capacity was terrible. And he goes, "Man, your portfolio is shit." And I'm like, "Fuck, the deals this guy must be getting must be off their head if he thinks mine's shit." Because I was sitting over $1 million net equity, making like next to nothing, right? So I was doing all right. And it was this dude that I idolized, and then I signed on with him. And he just started spamming me with the fucking worst deals you've ever seen. I go, "Bro, what's this?" And he goes, "No, man, these are mad." And I'm like, "They're not mad. I'm looking on market. I can buy shit on market 50 grand less than what you're sending me. What are you talking about?" He's like, no, you need this, and this. And man, I just like, it blew my mind. And yeah, man, it's like, I didn't realize it at first because at the same time, I was actually applying to I was trying to get into special forces. So I went through a whole, it shouldn't have been a year, but it was a year because of my hip, and I kept appealing, and I never got in. And it was during that sort of transitionary period that I tried to do this thing with the other BA. And a very tumultuous 27, right, like that year. And yeah, when that happened, man, it kind of like after that point, and I kind of realized I was really angry for like 6 months because I cut it. It was a $9,900 BA fee in full. Could not get it back. The dude has his own legal team. Like fucking good luck, man. I'm making 80 grand a year. Yeah, mad trying to battle that.
So you paid him up front the 9,000.
Yeah.
Jeez.
The 9.9, man. Never saw it again. And when you're making like 80 grand a year and post tax, you clear like 65.
Lot,
That's
bro.
heaps, man. So it just lit a fire in my belly of just like, well, if this guy's supposed to be what everyone idolizes as a pinnacle, which I literally did, then yeah, man, like we've got to be able to do this better, or I got to be able to do this better. So that's what made me want to do it. And then I'm still the same. It's why I'm like very vocal about like not paying market value, and that you should be doing the right things by your clients. And I'm very open and vocal about it and stick to it wholeheartedly because of what happened to me back then as well.
Yeah.
And it was funny because like one of the questions I can't remember which one you asked me right at the start was like why, in terms of like why are you still doing it, or like what makes you kind of keep going hard from this? Sorry, what was the trauma? That was the question. Like that's probably the adds to it. You know what I mean? There's always, I don't think you can become like a really elite level, not to put myself in the bracket. You know what I mean? Talk myself up.
We'll
on
call
that
a
end.
spade a spade. You're elite.
Thank you. But you can't get to that level. And I look at Emil as well, and like, can you imagine the amount of shit? I was still fucking working his way through the enemy lines in the wars and all that shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not putting myself on that level, but I'm saying like, you have to wade through some shit. And people who want the easy life these days, you're not going to get a fucking great life living the easy life. Right. You have to go through some trauma, and there's trauma at all these different things. But I think that's what keeps me super passionate. Is just like, what am I going to do if I stop? All right, mad. Go on a holiday for a while. You get bored, man. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's the same as Emil. Like, the team he's built and everything he's doing. You just get, what's he going to do? Like, he's the most driven dude ever. It's such as a switch, you know, you switch it off and then the game's over. Like, so, man, I still do it for myself because I love it. I still love doing the deals, and I still love helping people. And even my teammate, like so many of my team are building mad portfolios. Yeah. There's 3 guys in my team with over 10 property portfolios.
Wow.
There would be... majority of the team's investors got at least 1 or 2, but multiples would be in the high single digits, and there's 3 of them that got over double digits as well. So, man, we all eat, live and breathe this stuff, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, we just love it.
Awesome. Steaks for dinner, huh?
Steaks for dinner, baby.
That's exciting. So talk to me about the business side then. We've kind of talked about building a portfolio, you're big and buying at a market value. You're not shy to buy in areas that haven't performed yet as long as the data represents its growth. Talk to me about the business side. How have you been able to fucking build an incredible business and model that serves you, your clients, and the staff?
Man, I think it comes down to being very specific with what I wanted to achieve with it. And so each year, I kind of ended up finding myself resetting and then setting a goal. And I thought the goal was stupid, and then I'd hit it. And I was like, okay, well, if I keep hitting it, and that happened 3 years in a row, I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll double the goal. Right? Like what I want to hit, I'm going to double that again and we'll just hit. And then all of a sudden I'd hit it. You know what I mean? Because what I found was when you set a goal and then you create the game plan to hit the goal, most of the time you hit it or you come very close. So if you set half the goal and you set half the game plan, you only get there. So what I started to do was just like set these goals in terms of, and my mission's helping as many people as I can. You know what I mean? So like if I can do that and then still retain the quality controls, they're still getting mad deals, and still building great portfolios, and we can help keep strategizing them. It doesn't really matter what size we get as long as we retain the quality, right? I think that's the biggest thing where all these other people fall apart, where I think the dude that burnt me fell apart. He didn't build it. He just like, I'm going to get here and then just fucking boo, 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 as many deals as I can out the door to service people. Like
Not
just to get them
actually
done.
caring about the client.
Not caring, man. Not
It's
caring.
just about the money.
Exactly. And so I think building it in that way and kind of keeping really clear on that vision and just like, what are these things I need to bring in to be able to continue to service them at a really high level, whilst also, do a really good job by them, but also having, great business growth and everything at the same time and all the rest of it. So, man, it was like you said before, I got it's like a 31 man team. There's only 7 BAs out of that, right? In the last 2 years, we're in the AFR Fast Starters 2 years in a row. We'll be in the Fast 100 this year. You know what I mean? But like, there's only 7 BAs. That's 24 support staff there. You know what I mean? Making sure everything turns over perfectly.
Yeah.
And man, like I could take it to a stupid level and maybe double profit or rev or whatever for 2 years, and then your name turns to shit, and then it's game over. So I've tried to do it in a way where I scale but retain the quality, and I think that's the most important thing, man, because you can go really hard and fuck it, or you can go hard and control it. You know what I mean? It's like when you're in the Ferrari, man. There's been some times where I've been like, fuck, it's a bit too hard. You know what I mean? It's like, fuck, I almost lost it there. Yeah. But then there's other times where you're like, oh, it's quick. But like I was able to manage it. So it's like, it's to the point where you don't end up in the tree, but you end up in front of everyone else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Out of curiosity, when you were starting off the business, what hours were you? Because look, now it's a bit different, right? Like it's a bit of a different story.
Yeah, I
where
fucking
you're
work
at
harder now than I used to.
Really?
Yeah,
Even harder?
Yeah, I used to work hard, and these days, mate. Yeah.
All right, tell us. Let's go.
So
what do we do?
Finish the question. You want to finish the question?
What were you doing at the start? Like, what were the hours like? What were you doing before? But you're saying you're working harder now.
Yeah.
So talk to us. Like, what's your routine?
Man, so my routine these days is I get up at 5 every morning, and I typically work till about 7:30, because that's the time that I can work and my phone isn't blowing up all day, right?
Yeah.
Then at 7:30 I go to the gym. I train for about an hour, and I normally hit like a recovery session, like sauna, ice bath.
So 7:30 p.m.
a.m.
Sorry.
So I start at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Sorry, 5 a.m. till 7:30 a.m.
Oh, you're working.
I work.
What type of work are you doing at that time?
Cold calls.
Yeah, I get heaps of response to those ones.
Yeah. What are you actually doing?
Man, I'm
Look at
doing
the
this
deals.
shit for myself. So when I say for myself, it's funny I say for myself. Working on our podcast, working on things that are coming out, say in the next, like all my game plans for the next 6-12 months, like putting all that sort of stuff, the plans into place for all that sort of stuff.
Bit of chess, not
That's
checkers.
interesting.
Yeah, man.
That's interesting to do that. I've never heard someone
You-
get up and do that and then go to the gym.
As soon as 7:30, 8 a.m. rolls around, my phone's like pinging. Emails like are just absolutely smashing. So I don't have that peace, you know what I mean? Alex Hormozy,
Yes.
he works 5 hours in the morning every morning and then goes to gym and then has lunch, then fucks around the arvo, chills out, goes sees the missus, goes to bed, starts it all again. You know what I mean? So like I kind of actually initially got the idea from him when I heard it like 2 years ago. I need a train butt, so I can't put it off that long. He's the same. He's jacked, man. He's huge, right? But I can't put it off that long. And also most of my meetings start at 9 a.m. So if I go to gym at 7:30, I know I can do my sesh, do my recovery, be literally back just in time for my 9 a.m.s. But I've already done 2.5 hours worth of work and the session, everything. So then I'm charging for the day. And then I normally will work anywhere between an early night will be like 6:30. An average night will be 7 or 8, and then a late night's probably around about 9.
Yeah.
And it all depends on what I'm doing on the day, sort of thing. But man, that's pretty much every day. But it's just there's always so much going on and so many pieces in the puzzle. And
For sure.
Do you work Saturdays and Sunday?
I try not to work on a Sunday. I try and have that as a bit of a recharge day. But I normally do. It's the same as like the mornings. I'm kind of like either catching up on stuff or doing my own deep work.
Yeah.
And then the Saturdays, a lot of the time, I'll actually be catching up on stuff and just reviewing a lot of things through the day, from the week as well.
Fuck yeah.
But yeah, no, it's cool, man. It's funny because like I think when you're earlier in the business, you almost don't have as much to, you do, because you're doing everything, right? So like when you first start, you're literally doing everything in the business. like I used to do the discovery calls and the strategy sessions, and then I'd source the deals and I'd send them all out. Like even when the other BAs were in, man, I'd be sending all the deals out, closing the clients, doing everything with that, doing the renovations, managing the granny flats. But man, I don't think I had the same bandwidth or ability to work as long and as hard. And like as the longer I've done it, the more it's just like it's the norm. You know what I mean? I just do it every day.
Just building a muscle, right? The
100%
muscle.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right. So you're saying you're better, more effective, get more done now.
100%.
Yeah.
The other big thing as well is you should be hiring. So the bigger you get, you should be hiring people that are better than you at shit in your business. You know what I mean? Like whether it comes to sales, strategists, operations managers, client success managers, all these sort of people in the team, either better than you or good, and you can train them to be as good as you or good enough that they're still doing a great job. There's some people that outperform you in some things that might be better at, like I'm fucking terrible. I was terrible at studying and all that sort of stuff, right? So my operations manager's heaps better than me at all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
He's a second me in my thinking of it, but then he can actually go and execute it, not get sidetracked with all the other shit going on. And all the other guys, man, like you train them up, but then you bring in sales guys who've done sales forever. I've never been in sales, man. I grew up on a fucking farm playing soccer. You're like, I'm not a sales guy, you know, but then you bring in these guys that are literally, you know, born and bred, and that's what they do and they love and they eat and breathe it. And you train them on doing it kind of, you know, in the way that we like to do it. But then that's what they live and breathe. So it's cool, man. I think it's replacing that side of things. And then, really just focusing on what you're good at, managing it from a high level, and then, just kind of keep smashing it from that.
How do you keep the motivation up while you've already made it?
I think it's the passion, man. Like I'd never
Coming
lose
back to
motivation.
passion.
Yeah. The only thing I'd throw in is I need a few more rests these days. I think because I work the longer days, I normally work around about a 12 to 13 week block. So it's once a quarter, right? Yeah. I'll normally try and take a week or two off. I didn't last year. I got my school of property, right? It's our property education thing I've been wanting to do for ages. And I worked 5 months straight with that and didn't have a break. And I remember when I did it literally all the way up to Christmas. I released it the same weekend that I bought the Ferrari, actually. So I bought the Ferrari on the Friday, picked it up on the Friday, and I launched it on the Monday. But then there was 3 weeks till Christmas, and I was catching up then on everything else I had to do. And I remember, man, I was absolutely cooked. And I was only supposed to go to Japan for 2 weeks, and I go, no, I'm going for 4. I just needed to. I was done because I didn't put my little rests in. Yeah. But I was working, the 7 days a week. I was working 15, 16 hours every day. But it is what it is, you know. It's what I had to do.
What about in your first couple of years? Did you take any holidays?
Nah.
No, nothing.
Nah. Man, when I built my portfolio, I didn't take any holidays. 7 years, I didn't take a holiday. From 20 to 27, I didn't take a holiday.
Jack, Zach, Tom, my guys, my associates, are you listening to this? Make sure you listen to that part. Re-listen to it. Wind it back.
Mate, I think it depends how bad you want it, you know?
100%.
And for me, I was a really low income
100%.
I couldn't afford, if I want to go on the holidays or if I want to go out every weekend and do all that sort of shit, blow all the cash. And you've got to make a decision what you want in life. But like,
what game are you playing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And do you want to look back in your 30s and go, I had the most fun ever in my 20s? Whatever. And some people do. You know, and that's fine. And I sometimes look at some of my mates, I was like, fuck, I wish I had some of those nights that I missed out on. You know, I wish I went on that trip or whatever.
But now you can go on that trip first class.
Yeah, but then they look at me and they go, fuck, I wish I did what you did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're starting now, or maybe they got just their primary residence, or maybe they're just starting to invest now. We're in very different boats.
Well, you ate shit for a few years so you can live the rest of your life eating caviar, pretty much.
That's it, man.
Do you have an owner rock?
No, I don't.
Rent vest.
I rent vest. I wouldn't say it's from not wanting it at the moment. So I have actually kind of changed. Oh, it's not that I've changed it. I've kind of been a bit like, I wouldn't mind if the right owner op came up.
Yeah. You're not against it.
I'm not against it now. But I think that the other thing as well is I struggled to find where I really wanted to live. I was really struggling for that. So when you can't 100% define where you want to live, I don't believe there's any point in paying 5 or 10 mil for an owner op. What's the point? Yeah. You know, so if you can go and rent somewhere for substantially less, like you look at the mortgage differences. I don't know if you've ever done it with Graham. I know you guys do sessions with Graham. I don't know if you've ever done the differences of rent vesting compared to your owner occ. Yeah. But if you've got a decent priced owner occ, it's maybe 3-5 mil or more. The difference in terms of the mortgage cost, especially at current interest rates compared to rents, are crazy, absolutely crazy. It makes no sense. Man, definitely a big believer in rent vesting.
Have you found that location where you would buy?
No, I still haven't. Nah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to. A little bit of a tricky point, I think, when you start achieving a really high level is becoming satisfied with stuff.
Yeah.
You're always outgrowing things, and it actually is a tricky thing to navigate. So I got the Fezzer, but I'm like, the day I picked up the Ferrari, I told the guy, make sure when you get that cancelled SF90 order, you call me because I wanted to buy it. The day I picked up the Ferrari, like it's fucked, right? You know what I mean? Like, but it's, I don't know, man. Like you boys will find this the more you do it, and the bigger and better and more successful you get, you know, in the real estate career and the personal portfolio developments and everything. It's very hard to stay very satisfied, but I think that becomes just part of being driven and passionate. Like, is just, you know, you just will keep wanting.
There's always the next level, right?
There's always the next level.
There's always the next guy.
100%.
My last question for you, what would be your advice to anyone, and it's actually the same question I just asked Matt as well, but what would be your number one piece of advice for there's not just buyers agents and selling agents that are listening to this, there's people that are opening their own businesses, entrepreneurs, all 100%. That sort of stuff. What would be your best piece of advice for someone that's starting out?
In anything. Easy. Find someone who's done what you want to do.
Oh,
It's easy, man. Everyone tries to speak to this person or that person or whatever, or take advice from people who put shit up on Instagram that haven't actually achieved it. If someone has genuinely achieved what you want to achieve, ask them, speak to them, show them some value so they'll show you some value on that end, or however you have to do it to get that bit of advice, whether it's a mentor, whatever it is. Follow someone's path that's done it before you, because you will navigate all the rest of the bullshit.
Yeah.
I look at some of the guys that are now in their 20s that are coming and working with me. In 2 years, they built more than I did in 7 in their portfolios.
Wow.
More equity, more properties, more cash flow. The guys have been with me for like 4 or 5 years. Their portfolio is fucking way bigger than mine after 4 or 5 years. So like, where are they going to be when they're 15 years in like I am? You know what I mean? So it's like,
scary to think, man.
yeah, man,
Fuck.
100%.
It's crazy,
but it's so true. Like, you follow someone who's done what you want to do, because they've got the game plan. They've already been through it.
They've got the blueprint.
100%, bro. I always talk about it's like a pinball machine. My journey, fucking hit everything on the way up. You know what I mean? Like, hit everything and tried everything.
Yeah.
And I found a strategy that works, and it works for me. And
Yeah.
different things work for different people. But if you're trying something else, work with someone that's done it before.
Yeah.
Learn from them.
Follow Betty Crocker's recipe and don't defer from it.
That's it, man. Don't deviate. 100%.
Love it. Legendary.
mate, my last question for you, just out of my own curiosity, what's been your biggest takeaway from a mutual coach, Jeff Jowett?
Ooh, I like this one.
Big Jeffy.
I like this
The
one.
big goat.
The goat.
Mate, he is a goat. I fucking love that guy. There's so much gold.
There is so much gold.
To pick one
What's
thing.
the first thing that comes to mind?
First thing that comes to mind is bottlenecks. Bottleneck's the biggest one. That first thing comes to mind. I feel like
What was your bottleneck?
me,
You.
everything, on everything. So he's like, why are you still doing that? Why are you still doing this? Why are you still doing that? He fucking ripped me. You know what he's like. He'll just tear you to shreds for 5 minutes about why are you doing that thing still? Because you want to hang on to everything because I don't want someone else to fuck it up.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. Bring someone else in that's good, has got experience, and you can train them to do it how you do it. And just do that. You know what I mean? And that is probably the biggest thing. We've worked through heaps of things before, and there's a lot that I'm very grateful for Jeffy for that he's helped me with. That's probably the biggest thing. Realizing the bottlenecks and always looking for them then as well. Because once you start to learn how to look for it when someone else is picking it apart for you. And it's again, we'll go back to the question you asked me, was found someone who had built a significantly bigger business than mine, different space, but significantly bigger, and then just you listen to him, take it, action, implement. The biggest thing he always says to me, I don't know if he says the same thing to you, but he always says to me, mate, I love working with you. Actually, he must with you as well, because he's told me he cut like 90% of his clients and he only works with people that fucking implement.
Yeah, listen, he always says, he's like, you're the biggest implementer.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
no way. Because man,
love
you can take the advice, but it's like leading the horse to the water. You know what I mean?
fucking
Like,
do it, yeah.
man, you can get the advice, but if you don't implement it, fuck.
Yeah.
For one, what's the point? For two, you're never going to achieve it. You get told something, you action it, and either it works or it doesn't work.
I just realised that. Yeah, okay. I just realised Jeff's spoken about him too, but to me before about him as well. Insane.
There you go.
Cracker. Man, thank you. You're a legend.
Pleasure, boys. Thanks for having me on.
Whoa.
Here we go.
Whoa.
Here we go.
No, wait, last question. What's your new hot tip of the week?
Oh, my hot tip of the week. If you're going to ask someone their advice, if you're going to ask someone who's done what you get, fuck, let me go again. Probably just literally feeding on from that. If you are going to ask someone for their advice who has done what you want to do it and fucking implement it. Don't just get told it and then do nothing with it. There's my Wise Wednesday hot tip of the week.
Yes!
Let's go. Wednesday today too.
It is Wednesday.
Let's go.
Fuck yeah. Boys, thanks for having me on.
Thanks,
Honestly,
mate.
I've been pumped about coming to do this. I
You're
love
a
what you boys are
legend,
doing.
bro.
And keep
Time
going.
to
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, my man.
Appreciate it, boys.
Holy smokes, we actually made it. sorry to interrupt the podcast, but I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of our listeners, past and present, because we've officially hit 50,000 followers on Instagram. It's blown my mind to see how we've been able to build one of the biggest real estate brands in the country just off starting a podcast where we interviewed people starting in Zoom. So off the back of that, building all these relationships and having people know us in Perth, Adelaide, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, we now have access to all these off-market properties which I can't service with my current clients. We've got more properties than I have clients. So if you are looking to buy your next home to live in or investment, please reach out. Additionally, I know Kevin is the king of Kellyville, but if you're not based in Kellyville and you are looking to sell your home, we know all the best agents and could put you in with the right fit that suits you. So just wanted to give you a quick shout out, guys. Thank you so much for the support up until now. Both sides 50, baby.